Hello everyone, this is your radio host here, broadcasting to you a cautionary tale about the danger of bad hotel reviews.
And get me waking up, shaking up, tangled up. You could be waking up, making up, tangled up. You can't be faking it, making it for my love. Before the tragedy, don't get me tangled up.
Oh, alright, with all the theatrics out of the way, I should give a more detailed summary of the situation for those who might not know what's going on. I'm assuming most of you, for better or worse, have heard about Has-Been Hotel within the past few weeks. For those who don't know, it was originally a collection of Tumblr characters that their creator, VizzyPop, turned into a 30-minute cartoon pilot that was uploaded on YouTube.com. Not everyone went head over heels for it though, and one of those fine gentlemen was a YouTuber called PKrussl, who made a review on it, and I wouldn't be here if I liked it, now would I? With that said though, I must mention, if you're here to find out more about a certain Twitter drama that occurred after the pilot's release, you'll be disappointed to know that I won't be touching that with a 10-inch tuning fork. That kind of discussion is out of my jurisdiction, and most of my issues with Mr. Russell's video was how he approached the criticisms. But enough blathering from me, let's get on with the show.
Stop! Before you hit the dislike button, please watch the whole video. Please, watch the whole video. I'm going to explain myself. You can't just look at the title and dislike, okay? If you do that, you're a dumb person.
Calm down, my dear fellow. I get the fine folks on the internet aren't exactly what some would call hospitable. But if you're really that worried about some irrational onlookers, then maybe you should have just titled your video Has-Been Hotel Review and get rid of the text in your thumbnail that says the show is very bad. So you won't have people hating your video on sight. Sure, you could say you shouldn't have to worry about people disliking your video based on a negative sounding title. But if you want to avoid people instantly disliking your review, then having a more neutral sounding title would force them to watch your video and in turn force them to listen to your reasoning. I'm just saying, it's a bit hard to feel sorry for a burn victim when they were the one playing with fire.
Has-Been Hotel begins with a very nice intro song, and the visuals during this song really build the setting for Has-Been Hotel. It sets up the art style, it sets up the world. The intro is actually quite good, and I really like it. I'm already immersed by the time the song is done.
Keep this intro in mind, my dear viewers, it'll come back into play during the second act.
Oh, I'm alive! I'm alive!
Just to be unimmersed faster than literally anything else I've ever watched with the most cliche children's cartoon joke. A character survives something dangerous, celebrates surviving, and is then made not alive. That's not the only joke of this type.
I'll be the judge of that, Mr. Russell.
After that, we learn that this guy has just sold himself, if you know what I mean, to this character. And then the same joke we literally just saw happens 2 more times.
Ouch! Ooh, such an insult. Let me know when you come up with something creative to call me, you sack of poorly packaged horse shit. Tell the missus I said hi. Schnuckums.
The same joke we literally just saw? Funny you say that when we can clearly see Angel Dust insulting the driver. I believe that is a thing known to cause amusement or laughter, otherwise known as a joke.
Back up.
The guy's car goes and crashes. He's presumed not alive.
Of course, that's yet again ignoring how the setup for these jokes are also different. As you said, the build-up for the previous joke was a demon surviving a long fall to hell only to get quickly run over. And the setup for this joke was the driver bitterly riding along the road only to crash into something off-screen. The punchline is also more subtle here when compared to the previous joke, where we flat out saw the demon get gutted across the pavement, while this joke could easily be missed by a first-time viewer. Oh, but no, there's violence, so I guess the jokes are exactly the same. No differences in setup or execution at all.
Then he goes over and gets some angel dust. Someone takes it. And then literally the exact same joke. Gets smashed by a boulder and is committed not alive.
Please stop butchering the word literally, Mr. Russell. That poor collection of letters has suffered enough. Also, as I said previously, a joke having the same punchline does not mean the joke as a whole is the same. But that would imply that this guy ended here, when it actually gets subverted shortly after the crash.
Oh my god! My drugs!
Funny joke, oh my god. Drugs, oh my god!
Oh, so you do show that the punchline for this joke was different from the other two, yet you ignore that and continue to push the idea that it's the same joke because it involved drugs. Speaking of which, the main punchline of the joke wasn't, aha, they're using drugs. The punchline was that this gentleman got crushed by a boulder, and all Angel Dust cared about was the object he was holding. So there's more to this joke than you're making it out to be.
We had the exact same joke literally 3 times in a row there, in the span of less than a minute. It was like a span of 30 seconds. 3 different characters met their untimely fate as a joke. That was the same joke 3 times in a row.
So if I can ignore all my previous points to make an original argument, repetition in comedy isn't always a bad thing, since it conditions an audience to expect what the next joke will be. And while it's true that unaltered variations of the joke will fall flat, if the joke is altered, then that would subvert the audience's expectations, and that could cause a joke to get a laugh. And as you can see, that's what Has Been Hotel was trying to do here. 3 fellows having their afterlives abruptly ended, with the only cry of emotion being for the white powder that they were carrying on them rather than their sorry excuse for an existence. Now here's the funny thing. If you wanted to make an argument as to why the joke doesn't work, you could have brought up how Angel Dust didn't care at all for the previous 2 demons' deaths, so him reacting this strongly now would make it too obvious that he's not upset over the drug thief dying. However, the difference here is that I'm explaining what's wrong with the subversion while you're just complaining about the repetition and drug reference, the former of which was done intentionally to set up the punchline, and the latter of which shouldn't matter since the subject matter isn't what kills a joke, it's the execution.
Has Been Hotel is absolutely riddled with juvenile humor that you'd expect in a cartoon made for children, which would normally be fine, except this show is an adult show with adult humor, specifically aimed at older audiences, as the description of the video itself says. This juxtaposition of juvenile humor and adult humor in the same cartoon is frankly just uncomfortable. It feels like the show doesn't know what it wants to be. I thought Family Guy and The Simpsons were juvenile in their humor, but Has Been Hotel feels like a straight-up carbon copy of a Nickelodeon cartoon in terms of humor, with adult jokes wedged between incredibly juvenile jokes. And even the adult jokes are juvenile.
Hold on there, my fine fellow. You previously said that the show doesn't know what it wants to be, and has adult jokes wedged between incredibly juvenile jokes. These statements would imply that you think the show is totally confused and constantly shifts back and forth between the two, only to admit that the adult jokes were also juvenile, which in turn means that the show is consistently childish, which would undermine your implied complaint about the tone. So moving on from this contradiction, PK spends the next 40 seconds showing off a series of profane jokes from the show as examples of the juvenile adult humor, and I'll be skipping those for the sake of time.
The adult jokes fall behind even Family Guy in terms of how juvenile the jokes are. And Family Guy is as basic and face value as it gets when it comes to adult humor. I don't like the humor. You may think it's hilarious, but if adults are really watching this and getting a laugh, that explains a lot about this community and the way it handles drama and controversy on the internet, which is in a very juvenile and childish way.
Liking sophomore humor doesn't inherently make a person immature. Considering how most adults are expected to act reasonable, serious, and level-headed throughout everyday life, it would make sense for someone to enjoy juvenile humor as a way to let off steam from the everyday monotony. This also doesn't mean that they handle drama poorly, since the type of media you consume does not automatically correlate to how you handle more serious situations. This is edging dangerously close to the liking video games makes you violent mindset, and I find that rather disturbing. Oh, and to those in the peanut gallery who say this statement was supposed to be a joke, considering that he tied this into the Vivzy Pop drama, then I don't buy that this was just for humor, since he was clearly using it to make a point.
There's no depth to the jokes. It feels like Vivzy Pop, or whoever wrote this, had the goal of squeezing as many bad words and inappropriate concepts in as possible, without taking the time to write it out in a more tactful and more adult way. Adult jokes are supposed to be clever. It's supposed to require a little bit of brain power, a little bit of thinking to understand the joke. But the adult jokes in Has Been Hotel just aren't clever. It reminds me a lot of 13-year-olds when they learn what is for the first time, and the jokes they make about it. That's the level of adult humor in Has Been Hotel.
Can you not use your own subjective preference to state what humor should be? Adult humor does not have to be dry, witty, and intelligent to be considered adult humor. The only reason it's called that is because it's full of jokes that children either wouldn't get or contain subject matter that's inappropriate for children. And yes, jokes about sex, drugs, and gore, as cheap as you may find them to be, still fall under that category. Now don't get me wrong, slapstick and sophomore humor is not for everyone, and I can understand you dislike this show because of that. But when you go around claiming what adult humor should and shouldn't be like, that's when this goes beyond you simply stating your opinion, and turns into you dictating what types of humor adult shows can use. Anyways, after this he starts to talk about one of the villains that was introduced, and transitions to his complaints about the show's acting.
This type of overacting and voice acting is common among cartoons designed for young children. But this is a cartoon designed for adults. Mind you, I'm not trying to say that adults can't enjoy things made for children. But if adults are really watching this and getting a laugh, that explains a lot about this community and the way it handles drama and controversy on the internet.
Really? Never would have gotten that impression.
I live near Disney World and I go all the time, almost every day, and I love it. But Disney World knows how to properly cater towards all ages. There's always something there for everyone. But Has Been Hotel does it the exact wrong way. If you watch for the adult humor, you have to suffer through the juvenile nature of everything else in the show.
So, this implies that every adult will be turned off by the juvenile humor, even though there are plenty of adults out there that enjoy sophomoric jokes, as evidenced by the numerous amounts of people that liked this pilot. And while you've stated that you dislike those types of jokes in Family Guy and The Simpsons, those are still two incredibly popular ongoing adult cartoons, which shows that there is an audience that enjoys that type of humor. And in turn, plenty of adults that could enjoy Has Been Hotel. In short, the situation is not as black and white as you're making it out to be. Now again, I understand that this type of humor isn't for everyone, and I also understand how you personally don't find it funny. However, you're claiming that most adults would be turned off by the juvenile humor in the show, which is an unlikely and black and white scenario given how that type of humor is popular with adult cartoons these days.
If you watch because it's a cartoon and you're 12 years old, you will definitely enjoy the juvenile nature of the show, but the adult jokes will not only confuse you, but will scar you for life, because children shouldn't be exposed to the level of adult humor that exists in Has Been Hotel.
Just 12-year-olds? What about the possible 13 to 17-year-olds who may be watching this show? I'm pretty sure they would be familiar with the show's subject material, especially since you said the show's humor sounds like it was written by a 13-year-old not too long ago.
It reminds me a lot of 13-year-olds when they learn what is for the first time.
So if we're going to be taking them into account, then there would be more of a demographic for the show than you're making it out to be.
You think I'm some kind of fucking clown?
Maybe.
After some time, we're introduced to yet another new character who breaks through the glass, threatening to smash this guy's ship. Then it cuts to a news report where we are introduced to 2 more characters. So we're 5 minutes in, including the title sequence, and we've already been introduced to 5 characters. That's way too much. That's way too many characters for that period of time.
Is it now? Because even if we ignore how the reporters are side characters, or how there are other well-received television shows that have introduced a similar amount of characters within the same time span, we're told everything we need to know about these 5 characters within those 5 minutes. Angel Dust is a prostitute who's trying to keep their activities on the down low, Sir Pentious and Cherry Bomb are gangsters that are trying to take over hell, showing that there's an ongoing gang violence problem. And the 2 vain reporters are, well, 2 vain reporters who are there to show that these turf wars are not only frequent, but glorified. Not only does it show everything we need to know about these characters at this moment, but it is also able to set up more details about how the world functions. So I don't really see how them introducing so many characters in the span of 5 minutes is a problem, since they were able to get all of the necessary information out quickly. If it was a pacing problem and there was information that wasn't made clear, then that would be one thing. But you never explain how the important details got lost in the moment, you just complain about how they introduced 5 characters in 5 minutes, which isn't inherently a deal breaker as long as we can understand everything we need to know.
In this news report, we have some lovely adult humor.
Looks like they're fighting tooth and nail for that hotspot.
And I'd sure like to nail her hotspot.
You are a lip-dick jackass, Tom. Or should I say, no dick.
I'm laughing and crying. That was so funny. Oh my god. Literally, like, a 12-year-old wrote this, is what it seems like. If you watch because it's a cartoon and you're 12 years old, you will definitely enjoy the juvenile nature of the show, but the adult jokes will not only confuse you, but will scar you for life.
Would the 12-year-olds be able to understand the jokes, or will they fall victim to Mr. Russell's inconsistent writing? Find out next time on the contradictory tales of YouTube criticism.
Next, we're introduced to another 2 characters. We are now 5 minutes and 48 seconds in, and we've been introduced to 7 characters.
Mr. Russell, did you forget that lovely little intro you complimented earlier? The one that had Charlotte singing a song about how she felt like she was always chasing rainbows? The one that introduced Charlie as someone who's chasing impossible dreams while setting up the world of the show?
Waiting to find a little bluebird.
Because it seems like you have, because otherwise you wouldn't be acting like Charlie's a new character.
Homophobic joke alert! Homophobic joke! Illegal homophobic joke!
You have spent the past 6.5 minutes complaining about how the show has immature humor, and yet you're perfectly okay with screaming like a 12-year-old with obnoxiously loud sound effects. Just saying, if you're going to throw stones, it's best not to live in glass houses. With that out of the way, he spends the next 4 minutes defending a joke that started some Twitter drama, and as I said earlier, I'm not interested. Moving on.
So Charlie, who is this girl, goes on to explain on the news that she wants to end the extermination, which from what we can infer is a government procedure similar to the Purge or Hunger Games, a nasty tradition in the government of hell where Has-Been Hotel takes place to control the population. She plans to end the extermination by opening a hotel where sinners, the citizens of hell, can redeem themselves to escape hell.
I have a dream. I'm here to tell about a wonderful, fantastic new hotel.
And then she sings a song for some reason. There goes any interest I had left in the show.
Why are you acting like this song came out of nowhere? Even if we ignore that the intro I mentioned earlier had Charlie singing a song, there was an entire scene before this musical number where Charlie outright said she wanted to explain her plans through music.
What if I sing a song about it? Please don't sing.
Better at expressing myself and my goals through song.
So I have no idea why you're acting so bewildered at her bursting into song when it was flat out said this was something Charlie likes to do.
Overused trope alert! Overused trope alert!
Price your bets, ladies and gentlemen. How long will it take the marvelous Mr. Russell to complain about yet another joke being too immature for his refined tastes?
She sings and puts on an absolutely huge performance all about her idea, and then at the end of the performance, what does everyone do? First, we have a juvenile joke.
Just under 10 seconds! I've seen faster displays of hypocrisy in my lifetime, but still fairly impressive nonetheless.
And then everyone starts laughing. Literally one of the most overused tropes in video history, whether it's films, TV shows, etc. A character explains a grand plan or ambition they have, or a character puts on a huge performance. Here it's a combination of the two, and at the end everyone laughs at them.
Oh, would you? Look at that! It's a problem I've had with media criticism for a long time now, where the critic gets onto a show's case for using the commonplace trope without looking into how it was used or why the trope was used to begin with, which in turn boils down their critique to nothing more than just calling something bad because they're personally sick of seeing the trope over and over again. Don't get me wrong, on a base level I can understand why people are frustrated with seeing the same stories and events told several times, however this is a very subjective issue that varies depending on a person's experience with media. And as I said, it also ignores why this trope was even used. In this instance, it's to show that the idea of redemption is completely laughable to these people. Wide-eyed optimism and hopeful endeavors are treated as something that's absurd, and that Charlie's going to have her work cut out for her as the series goes on. So it's still a functional method of getting information across that you ignore completely just because scenes like this have happened before, which on its own doesn't make the scene bad as long as it's executing the trope well enough. And to those clever few in the audience who would argue that this is just Mr. Russell's opinion, he is not framing it as such. He is framing it as a negative aspect of the show that could hurt it in the long run.
I think that will ultimately hurt it in the long run.
There is a difference between an opinion and a critique. An opinion is just whether or not someone likes something. A critique is an analytical deconstruction that highlights the good and bad aspects of a piece of media. My problem here is not that you dislike the joke. My problem here is that your critique is shallow at best.
The concept of the show is great so far. The idea of a civilization in hell and someone creating a hotel to rehabilitate people out of it is a really interesting concept that has a lot of potential. But with all the overused tropes and themes, it feels like I'm watching literally any other cartoon on Nickelodeon or whatever. The concept is unique, but the execution is very cookie cutter with a few adult jokes thrown in here and there, you know, and lots of bad words. It's disappointing because I really do think the concept for the series has a great potential, but it seems like the writers tried to make it feel like every other cartoon that already exists without doing anything unique to set it apart from anything else. I think that will ultimately hurt it in the long run.
Now, if I can bring up a minor recurring issue throughout the video, you tend to spend a lot of time repeating yourself. It takes you 38 seconds to say that the concept is interesting, but it dares use commonplace tropes to get its story across, therefore it's bad. I understand you are trying to elaborate here, but you don't really add anything new, you just repeat yourself.
Angel Dust explains how he ended up at the Has-Been Hotel, and then literally out of nowhere, this happens.
Oh, harder, Daddy!
This happens literally out of nowhere, and there's absolutely no explanation as to why it happened.
You know, aside from Angel Dust being a porn star who likes mouthing off to people in more ways than one, and was previously established to not take anything seriously. And if by any chance you want to argue that you still didn't find the joke funny, your point was that it had no reason to happen when there was a reason. So whether or not the joke landed for you doesn't change how your initial claim was woefully inaccurate.
Now, sometimes random humor that happens out of nowhere can be funny.
But that wasn't random humor, though. Random, or as it's also called surrealist humor, is characterized by completely illogical behaviors. Even if we ignore how Angel Dust is the type of character to crack a joke during any situation, the joke does have a thread of logic to it. Angel Dust got wrapped up in a whip. Whips are a well-known part of BDSM or other forms of sexual roleplay, and saying "Hot daddy" is typically what one says when they want to derive more pleasure from a sexual situation. This is not random humor. Vulgar humor, sure, but not random.
But in this example, as with many other examples of humor in this show, it seems like the writers just thought that being inappropriate for absolutely no reason at all, being inappropriate for the sake of being inappropriate, out of literally nowhere, they thought it was funny for some reason.
Oh dear, it's almost like they have a different sense of humor than you or something. Of course, this is ignoring how the joke did have more to it than just being inappropriate, but it's not like anyone watching your review would know that, since you conveniently cut out the actual punchline of the joke.
Oh, harder, Daddy. Son?
That being how it was a subversion of the whole daddy kink by having Sir Pentious wonder if Angel was actually his son, and yet you're framing this like the punchline was just a sex joke with nothing else to it.
You think I'm some kind of fucking clown?
Maybe.
After that, we ride along in a limo with Angel Dust, Charlie, and Charlie's girlfriend, whose name is Vaggie. And in this scene, Vaggie scolds Angel Dust, and there's excessive use of the F word. I think the writers wrote that in because they want you to remember this is an adult show, so they can say the F word, right?
Funny that you don't show any audio from the scene as an example of how the F-bomb was misused, especially since the scene you're talking about only says the F word once, and it was used for emphasis.
Little stunt made us look like a fucking joke.
That's the only time she says the F word throughout that entire scene. Even if I gave you the benefit of the doubt and assume you just didn't want YouTube demonetizing your video for using the F word, this entire point could be summed up with you not paying attention.
It doesn't add anything at all. It's just kind of said randomly, not used for emphasis, just kind of thrown around because adult show, right? That's a
Yes, we get it. You hate it when F-bombs are unnecessary, even though this wasn't actually an F-bomb. Can we please move along?
When they arrive in the hotel, it appears completely run down and abandoned. No new souls have shown up to be rehabilitated, and the writers missed out on a great opportunity for character development. Angel Dust says this joke,
It's probably a good idea to get some actual food in this place. You know, to feed all the wayward souls you got in here.
right here, where he pauses and walks away. What if he kept walking towards Charlie to comfort her? Show a softer side that he doesn't show publicly. I think the writers missed a great opportunity to make Angel Dust a non-one-dimensional character, but no, they had to make him basic AF and one-dimensional AF, just an a-hole constantly.
He was showing a softer side to him, Mr. Russell. Him wanting to comfort Charlie lets us know that he does have a caring personality deep down, but refuses to let it show due to the persona he created to make a living in this cruel world.
Oh, come on, I had to! My credibility was on the line. I mean, what kind of reputation would I have if people found out I was trying to go clean? It just throws out my entire persona.
Him hesitating to comfort her doesn't automatically negate how the pilot showed he has a nicer side to him.
Conversations are had, things are said between characters for a while, and then literally, unprovoked, out of nowhere, this happens.
And what can you do, my effeminate fellow?
I can suck your dick.
Ha! No.
It didn't come out of nowhere, Mr. Russell. There was a clear setup to this joke. Alistair agreed to help Charlie run the hotel and asked if he could see the staff.
So where is your hotel staff?
And when he asked the porn star what he could do, the jokster's natural response would be,
I can suck your dick.
and this vulgar reply clearly caught the well-mannered Alistair off guard. There was a clear transition into every part of this joke, so it's not as random as you're making it out to be.
For some reason, people on Twitter found this to be hilarious. It's not funny. This is the epitome of trying too hard to be funny, literally. Just more 12-year-old level dirty humor that happens out of nowhere.
Are you telling me people that aren't you found a joke you didn't like funny? Or what a surprise! Apologies if I've been repetitive so far, so I'll just end it here. The rest of Mr. Russell's video is saying something came out of nowhere when it didn't.
You have a dream.
You wish to tell?
Then there's another song, for some reason.
Complaining about something for being cliche, and nothing else.
And then what other way to end the episode than with yet another overused trope of all the characters who've teamed up walking into the sunset. And you guessed it, there's a post-credit scene with yet another overused trope. The enemy who is defeated hasn't really been defeated. Oh my god, who could have guessed? Oh.
Honestly, the only new point I can bring up is this bit, where he claims the animation is objectively good.
Objectively, the animation is great.
Only to immediately undermine that statement by dismissing problems animators might have with it because it looked okay to him.
I'm sure if you are an animation student or you do animation, you might have some things to say, you might have some criticisms, but it looked fine to me. Looked okay to me.
Which directly goes against the idea of objectivity, since he's just spouting his personal opinion on the animation. Now, if you'll excuse me, it's time for me to express my incredibly informative and spectacle-inducing